Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to Snacks Thoughts. Again, I welcome you to Snacks Thoughts. Now, what is my thought for today? Well, my thought for today in this podcast, I'll call it Expatriate Fever. Again, the name of this podcast is called Expatriate Fever. And for those that may not know what an expatriate is, basically an expatriate is an individual that has chosen to live or reside abroad. Or if you want to say a foreigner from a different nation that has chosen to reside or live in another. But yes, expatriate fever. And so when I talk about having expatriate fever, it's kind of funny because, I grew up in New York City, right? And I would never have thought that I would want to reside somewhere else than the United States. And obviously I wasn't always this way. I joined the military, and through that combination of meeting different people and different life experiences I had while I was in the military, and I have to admit, I had some interesting experiences, and I actually had most of them were really good experiences. And I spent maybe about 75% of my career overseas. So that probably has a lot to do with it. But, when I was serving in the States, I guess America was all I knew. And so at that time, I hadn't considered anything about overseas. I'd heard about it from other friends and other people that had been stationed abroad. And, I get my first duty station in England, going to Europe. And for me, that was life-changing, and it was eye-opening, and for me in different ways. For each person, we internalize things differently. Now, let me explain to you why Europe, or England in particular, was eye-opening for me. At that time, me coming from America at that time, and with from a ghetto with, say, some limited exposure. I thought that it was interesting that the cops or the bobbies, that they were, actually very friendly. And I am African American, and this is no knock against the police or anything like that. But it's it's no secret, and unfortunately, it can be stereotypes going either way. But young black males, in a lot of cases, don't necessarily look to befriend the cops, or may necessarily be too trusting as the reputation that has been given and stereotypes, through the media. But the cops were real friendly, and I felt a sense of freedom, and it was the first time after having left America that, as an African American man, and a young man at that I didn't feel profiled. I'm just being honest, guys. I didn't feel profiled. I was free as an individual. When I went into grocery stores or shopping malls, I was just another individual. The store detectives, weren't following me around. I wasn't looked at suspiciously, because of the color of my skin. And then on top of that, I have to be honest, not just Europe. And, England was the first country I went to overseas, but everywhere else I've been to also, I felt like a greater acceptance, where it wasn't based on what I look like on the outside. It was honestly more so based upon who I was as a person. And so there was freedom. Interracial dating and marriage overseas in many other countries I went to, it didn't seem to be such a big deal as it was, in the United States, at that time, but there was much more freedom. The people that I met overseas, and when I look at the different cultures, in the different countries I've been to. Now, understand something. I've been to about 21, 22 different countries, and I lived in quite a few. And even though these countries and their cultures are different, there's certain common denominators, but they seem to have a more, I guess, maybe laid back kind of lifestyle. And I'm not saying that they don't have their hustle and bustle and people get on their grind, but there is more of a seems to be more leisure time, and people seem to live more and, I would say, not exist. In America, I've always felt that, especially coming from New York City, but in America, I guess, is the price of being capitalist. Obviously, we're more individually minded and driven to attain a certain status, certain amounts of money, or certain materialistic things, But yeah, the lifestyle was more laid back. There was more sense of community, and there was still that common respect for your fellow man. And it's like they still had the sense and the value of personal touch. Now, some would say, well, that's not necessarily true, say maybe in certain countries in Asia like Japan, or either maybe China, where they're so technologically advanced. But I will say this, even in Japan, I did feel more of a personal touch and a sense of community, even with all their technological advancements, than I have in America. And now, understand something. I love America, and I always will love America. It is my home. But many times when we experience something different, you don't know any better until you experience it. And I'm not necessarily saying that everything is better when I was overseas, but I'll say it was different, and I believe that I probably took to it and I probably internalized those experiences, and I really did. I really enjoyed it, and I just cannot seem to shake that bug to go back overseas or live abroad. I tried it. I tried it. I've been back in America now, at least 13 years. And I thought that maybe the effect of having been overseas like that, I said, it'll probably wear off. And, I had family and friends, that said, you back in the States now, but I don't know. It never changed for me. It never changed for me. I still somehow, I still prefer overseas. Now, granted, I have common sense. I know that there's going to be a lot of things that are never going to be the same with this pandemic and, the global economy. But, eventually at some point, things are going to have to normalize and stabilize, become stable and stuff like that. But overseas, for me, it still always had that certain type of appeal because I felt it was more laid back. I felt it was in the environment. It's somewhere where I could focus and be productive, but I could also get my leisure time, be productive without maybe so much stress. I feel personally in America to some degree that because of the competition that is bred in this culture, because of materialism and, obviously, being individually minded, nothing wrong with it. I feel there's it does breed some form of stress. Is there, some productivity? Yes, but there's also, a lot of stress. And I also, looking at it from, outsider's eyes, looking in, I see things that don't necessarily have to be the way they are, but I'm just one person. That's just me. But yeah, that expatriate lifestyle, for me, that right there is the lick, man. That's just my speed, and we're all different. And I figured out that, man, if I have that desire in me hasn't changed after being back in America for 13 years, after coming out the military, it ain't never going to change. It ain't going nowhere. But yeah, so I am definitely looking and, considering where exactly I want to be, overseas. Haven't decided yet, but, I'm considering, Now, there's always an exception to the rule. We always got to have that clause in there. There could be an exception with certain environments that I wouldn't mind in the States, you know what I'm saying? But it would take an exception to have, from my opinion, to beat out overseas. And there's certain places that I wouldn't mind, but overseas, for me, still wins out. And so I've decided after being here 13 years, I haven't kicked it yet. I guess overseas, it must be my speed or my thing. But yeah, expatriate fever. I love it. I definitely enjoy the different cultures and societies, and just that laid back lifestyle, where you can have some leisure and you can actually live and enjoy life, but still be productive. Yeah, that's it right there. But I'm not going to hold you guys up any longer on this podcast. But yeah, the name of it is called Expatriate Fever. So I'm considering it. And maybe some of you are considering going abroad also. But for me, I'm considering making this a permanent move. I can always, have my family visit me and vice versa visit them, because I'm out here by myself, in California anyway, so we got to make trips to visit each other, so same thing. But yeah, expatriate fever, I got it, and I just can't kick that bug after I experienced that. I had a blast, I enjoyed it, and I just I love the lifestyle, Hey, different strokes for different folks, you know what I'm saying? That's my stroke, folks. But that's all I have. Again, the name of it, this start right here, this podcast is Expatriate Fever. And the name of my podcast channel is Snack Thoughts. That's SNAKZTHOUGHTS, Snack Thoughts. You can find me on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Anchor, Radio PBM, and a host of other podcasts and media platforms. But please subscribe to Snacks Thoughts. Push it out. Share Snacks Thoughts. And I also have a YouTube channel, which is Eric Broadus YouTube. And that's EricBroadus YouTube, or ericbroadusyoutube.com. So please go over there and subscribe to my channel, and share Eric Broadus YouTube also, and leave comments, hit that like button too. But that's all I have for Snacks Thoughts, guys. Thanks for hanging out with me, and thanks for listening. Again, Expatriate Fever. Hey, if any of you guys, if you're with me and you feel me knocking, then let me in. Peace out and enjoy your weekend.